All right, Genesis chapter 6, we're going to dive into it. This is kind of a tricky section at the beginning. Introduced to the Nephilim, the mighty men of old, the men of renown. A lot of question marks on that, whether it's fallen angels or not. I'm going to set that aside because I think there's some other stuff that's much more relevant. In chapter 6, God says to Noah, verse 3, I'll not always strive with man. He's not going to always give and take, but there's a point where God meets out judgment. And in this verse, he says 120 years. That's all we have is 120 years. His days shall be 120 years. So there's a question, is God now reducing the lifespan? Not really, because even Jacob lived longer than 120 years, and he was several generations after the flood. So the best way to interpret this is God is giving Noah a 120-year window to prepare for the great flood that's going to come. So in the context of, I guess, the geology, atmospheric conditions, it's highly unlikely that rain was normal and probably had never seen a flood. So when Noah is given instructions by God, Noah has a great testimony that in the last verse of the chapter, it says that Noah did everything according to how God commanded him to do it. Noah did it all. He didn't doubt, he didn't question, he just obeyed, which is a good lesson for us. So a key section would be chapter 6, verse 5 to 8. It's this wide range of God is observing mankind. Their thoughts are continually wicked in every way, constantly. All he sees is wickedness. It causes God great sorrow. He's almost contemplating he had never created humanity. But verse 8 is the key. It says, but in light of all that, in contrast to the reality of the culture at the time, Noah finds grace in the eyes of the Lord. So Noah is seeking out God, but God has grace waiting for him. And through Noah is the hope of all mankind. So God gives Noah instruction for the dimensions and the size of the ark and how to prepare it. And we see a couple of interesting nuggets in there about gopher wood, which might be a type of oak or something native to that area. But also he uses pitch. He uses pitch from the region to seal it up, which is obviously the Arabian Peninsula there. A lot of oil, which is where Rockefeller read this passage and began searching out for mining and digging for oil back in the 20s and 30s, 1920s. So this is where the Rockefeller wealth came from, this idea. Reading this passage, he noted, wow, there must be pitch that's good asphalt, that's good for sealing up boats. Perhaps that's oil. And indeed it was. So you read through this chapter, you get a lot of interesting nuggets. How do all the animals fit? We'll talk about that in chapter 7 probably. But very interesting. God was preparing Noah for something he had never seen. And Noah becomes a preacher of righteousness, but the world around him doesn't respond. So that's chapter 6. Hope you enjoy it. Dig into it, read, take note of the details of the ark. Noah did it all just as God planned and designed it.